Testing. We still have to send this home, right? To students at home, online students. So this is why I'm up here. So I can, so I'm still online there. But let's talk about the paper first. You gonna be ready Thursday night, midnight?
Yeah.
Thursday night, midnight? Thursday night, midnight, everybody? Okay, I had 2 more turned in. Let me tell you how this worked really well. We had 1 student who turned it in, did a great job on 3, missed on 1. Let me tell you what the miss was. Okay, word to the wise. Took a lot of the data from the first essay and just moved it to the second on the economy. Like fixing the economy is just about fixing COVID. Look, you can't repeat yourself. So you might want to just simply say, hey, I'm all set.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, so you can't say, or you do all the COVID stuff really, really well, right? And then just take 50, 60% of that and stick in the next essay as if we handled COVID, the economy's. No, that's 1 sentence. Fixing COVID's going to help, right? But see the first essay. Now let's talk about new stuff. So that's where you got to get in the American Recovery Plan. And I had a student send me an email. Well, they can't have implemented it all, right? But at least we can talk about the plan. And yes, that's exactly what you can do, okay? So you can say, here's what the plan is, let's see how they do. Now, if you have something that's been implemented, even better, but if you don't, talk about the plan. So you're shaking your head because you see that problem, right?
Yeah. Mostly it's
the economy
climate change.
Yeah.
Also, he only got us back into the Paris something.
Right.
But that's
okay.
With Paris, that's all I know that.
Okay. Well, listen, okay, so here's what I did with this student. I sent an email back and says, look, not enough facts about the plan and the recovery. So they got 250 points in the roll book. Okay. So how many she got to go? Because it's 300. You're at a STEM school, you know the math, right? 50. So resubmit that, got partial credit because the last part was really good. The last 3 sentences had what I was looking for. Fix that one, full credit. Okay, so that's great. Who can get it in even before Thursday? You know what I'm going to do? Just for you guys. Don't tell anyone else. Shh, everybody from home. Don't tell anyone. Let's make it the 2nd at midnight. That gives you Friday. You okay with that?
Yeah.
No, if you want me to go back to the 1st, I will.
No.
No?
The second works great.
Yeah, second works great.
Yep.
I was just looking at the calendar going, why did I say the 1st? Don't tell anybody else. This is the only class that gets that.
Works for me.
People at home. All right. So you all good with that? All right, let's get to the regularly scheduled lecture. Now, another thing I don't think you guys got that the other classes did. And here we go. I got to share screen still. Yeah, tell you what, we'll get this down to a science here soon. Okay, that you guys didn't get the press conference. Did you not get the press conference?
The press what?
The press conference from Biden's first press conference.
I'm not sure.
The thing is with the press conference is there's answers in there. Press conferences are important. They're news making. And so for A block, I'm going to play it. I don't want to today. I don't have the time today, but we're going to do it anyway because there's too many answers in that. And so let's see if we can find the press conference. So it was like for an hour or so, right? So these are just the clips. There's a lot of news there. First of all, Biden doubles down on the 100 million shots. It's now 200 million, right? I mean, it's working. That part of it's working, right? Bad news is America's decided to take its masks off, and look at that. We're jumping right back up again.
Oh no.
We may be into another surge. This is worse since yesterday. Let's see. Look. Hold your breath. I don't think I did check it this morning.
Was it spring break?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And looks like, and look who's catching us, India, with what? 5 times the population.
Oh no.
So what are we doing here? And Brazil, of course, they party all the time. So that's their problem, right? But they become a World Health Organization. Do you know, okay, what countries can America not go visit right now? We're banned to travel because our infection rate's too high. You know that, right? Yeah. Try to get in the UK right now without 2 weeks of quarantine. So this is not good stuff. Utah, on the other hand, let's get the good news here. I like to do this just to reassure you guys that something's good's happening, and it is. We're looking at 15% now as of this morning. Yeah. Now we got to get to what percent?
70.
Yeah. You guys are listening. You actually listened.
Yeah.
Really?
That's a surprise.
Was that a pain? Was that a total pain? This disembodied voice up here. I hated it. But you loved it, right? No, you didn't. Thumbs up,
There's a
thumbs
reason
down.
I picked the second semester. I hope you come back.
Well, I'm glad to be back. And listen, I thank you guys too, because here's the thing. None of my elderly people got sick. My mom's going to live to be 100. We're going to celebrate 100th birthday. None of my older people got the virus at all. None of us. And we all got vaccinated. And I get to play with my 2 grandsons yesterday for the first time in 6 months, like 8 months, because they have tutors. They have autism, students with autism, and they have tutors. All their tutors got sick. You know, they were younger people, so they did fine. But I can't tell you how much fun that was. That was probably like the highlight of the year, right? And then being back with you guys too, because I really, really enjoy being here. All right, let's go ahead now and get to the regularly scheduled lecture so you guys can figure out what we're doing here. Now, here's where we left it off, right? We talked about the 3 elements of power here. So diplomatic, economic, military. You got to have some degree of national unity, right? How we doing on this part? Yeah, not good, right? So, but diplomatic, that's taking a hit. Economic, obviously taking a hit. Military, still supreme, no worries there. Okay, so the 3 elements of power, where's the United States? Okay, so the question I gave you in the last study guide, right? I've done it. Was an intriguing question at the end. Has the American century ended? Did the preeminent power of the world after World War II phase out relative to the rest of the world? Can you say now, USA, number one, number one, number one? What are we number one in? Let's go through. What are we number one in? What are we the best at?
Being bad with COVID.
Say that again, a little loud.
Being bad with COVID, like not doing good.
Oh yeah, okay, so see, we lost the edge there. We used to be the world leaders. Seriously, we're the world leaders in infectious disease. We're not that anymore, obviously. Nobody gives us any credibility. We're a hazard to the rest of the world. So that's a knock against us. What else?
I feel like in the past, like during the ancient times, military powers would largely gave people their empires and their true status across the world.
Right.
But I feel like America isn't a superpower as much nowadays because the true power of influence is shifting away from military and more towards economic because we have more unity worldwide. So economy is what matters.
All right, I'm leaving now. I'm out of here because you don't need me anymore. Okay, seriously, that is where I was going with my theses. I'm still thinking this through, okay? But can you take a military like the United States and conquer empire today? Are we ever going to have a World War II like war again? We're clash of tanks, clash of this, clash of that? No. The war is what?
What was it?
The economic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it.
It's all about money.
So it's all about the money because guess what? All these corporations we're buying the vaccines from are international corporations. Who are they selling to? The highest bidder. United States is willing to pay more than some other countries. We're getting more vaccine. Right? So I think you nailed it. I really, literally, I agree with you. I don't see another war like that to be anybody's advantage because is Russia a communist country now? They're capitalist. Is China a communist country? They're capitalist. So capital flows around the world and business requires stability. And so if you have a war, that hurts business, right?
Yeah.
And since these are all capitalist nations now, they don't want the status quo messed up in Africa or here and there. So to minimize conflict may be the only role military has.
Didn't get more.
Yeah. So that was brilliant. Okay, so well done. Is the American president the leader of the free world? What are we leading at? Where's our lead?
Egotisticalness.
Say again?
Egotisticalness. I feel
Yeah,
like
we
we
got
have a
all
lot
that.
of ego.
There's hubris. Absolutely hubris, no question.
I feel like that's part of what holds us back a lot.
I think so. I mean, when you think you're all that in a bag of chips and you're not, you're going to lose the big game,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's like what we've been losing, I feel like, since World War II is slowly we've just been kind of like gaining this sense of like egotisticalness to the point to where it's just like,
Yeah, it's almost like people take it for granted we're going to be on top. That it should be like an endowment, a gift because of who we are. Because we're so great, we should just get the world's wealth coming our way. Right? Does the rest of the world accept that thesis? No. So you started us on a nice track here. I like that. Go ahead.
Well, I feel like the egotisticalness sort of comes from any empire or great nation that's ever really existed. Is even after their fall, they still believe that they're the best. Like the Romans, they believed that they were on top, even when clearly they were about to be betrayed. And
So true.
same thing for like the Britons and the British Empire. They were very prideful of their country, and they still kind of are, up until the point that America became the world power, and now we're sort of declining in power.
Do you know what happened there? You guys remember the Marshall Plan? You guys remember that? Okay, so after World War II, United States, we set up NATO, the United Nations, and the Marshall Plan. Now, the Marshall Plan was designed to rebuild Germany, right? Do we have a map on this? I think I got a map on this somewhere. Here we go. Where we're extending our reach around the world, right? And the Marshall Plan was part of that. Let's go back here. So these countries devastated by the war, the economy just trashed, gone. So turning to an alternative system like communism would have been really attractive. Not knowing that eventually this was not going to pan out, but it sounded good at the time, right? I mean, it's why the Soviet Union became communist throughout the Tsar, because of those, we got to do something different. They were vulnerable. All these countries were. So we literally rebuilt, we recapitalized them. We gave them billions of our taxpayer dollars to rebuild their economies. Why? So they could then contribute to the mutual defense, reindustrialize. Who makes the greatest cars in the world?
Japan.
Germany.
Oh.
And Japan too. Japan was part of this. Japan should be over here. It was a different treaty system. But Japan, we rebuilt them from the ground up too, turning them into allies versus enemies. All right, that was great, right? But they're not going to sit still either. And in Europe, of course, they formed the European Union and whatever. But this whole economic dynamic then starts to work not against us so much as our alliances are the reason we survive. And what alliances now do we have?
Friends, not parents, no.
Sorta. Yeah, we're struggling, right? We're struggling. So this system no longer exists. Where is it written that the American empire goes on forever? It's not written anywhere. It's not a thing, okay? So we're gonna move ahead. China, of course, we talked about the rise of their economy. We don't need to do this again. Let's go back to here. And you guys have seen this. But we did talk about Nixon's trip, how that changed everything, how the European Union has now become a big thing. Who dominates the economy of the European Union? Germany, by far. They control the economy of Europe, frankly. They run it. So they are kind of like the United States was. And then China has completely abandoned any sort of communistic thing. They now have state-run capitalism. They're investing all over the world. They're creating friends and allies all over the world. They've passed Japan now. They've passed the United States. Now look, here's a misconception. It's not that we're in decline. It's that we're growing more slowly relative to the rest of the world. We're not getting worse, right? But relativity enters in. relative. Are we number one in education? Only at UCAS. And that's kind of true. But our education system's lagging behind. Look at this number of students enrolled in Chinese universities is over 20 million now. Every 4 years, they graduate another 20 million graduates. 20, 40, 60, 80, what it takes 20 years, they'll have more graduates than the United States has people that currently have degrees. In other words, they're going to have 3 times as many college degrees as us in just a few short years. They have, here's the number of degree holders in the United States, only 48%. One of the biggest problems America has. Huh? We're uneducated. Do we have the best math scores? Do we have the best reading scores? And every single one of those metrics, the United States falling behind. Medical, we say, oh, our medical system's the best. Is it?
No.
When you compare it to the world, we're down about 14, 15, maybe even more now.
Wow.
In infant mortality. That's one of the key metrics. Where's our infant mortality compared to other countries? How do we do with COVID compared to other countries? Okay, we lost a year on our life expectancy this last year. Had the deadliest year in American history. And yet, guess what? Our hubris tells us that, well, that's okay though, because America's always going to be on top. Not unless we get this to act together. So then we have other allies like Vladimir, right? Now, Vladimir Putin is an autocrat. He runs his country with an oligarchy of plutocrats. Now, you all understood what I just said, right? Because you paid attention all semester. What's a plutocrat? What's a plutocrat? Ruled by
The few.
the
Because like God,
oligarchies ruled by a few.
Putin is like in control of everything, and he keeps like manipulating the system so he gets back in over and over again.
Oh, absolutely. That's what makes him an autocrat.
Mhm.
Okay, so you got the autocrat part. The oligarchy part is ruled by a small group.
Yeah, just small group of
Who is the small group?
The like richest. and,
All their business owners
Mhm.
that are making billions of dollars
Big
doing capitalism. And they're plutocrats, means ruled by the rich.
Right. Okay.
So a rich few oligarchs, they call them, are running that country and literally running the population into the ground. Their population is declining. It's like, it's just crazy. But here is Putin. Putin's sport was, he's a judo master.
Yeah.
He actually at one point was trying to get on the Russian Olympic team in judo, right? What is the principle of judo?
I don't know.
You use your enemy's strength to what?
Against.
Against them. So if they come at you with full force, like a big football player, American football player, put a helmet on, whatever, go right toward a judo guy. Judo guy sitting there with the little black belt on,
Those dodgy ones, they're just like-
you just step to the side, you put them right on the ground, whatever. What is one of America's strengths?
Nature.
At least we think it is.
It's full force combat.
One of our strengths is democracy. So you use the democracy against your enemy. So what has he spent the last 6 years doing? Discrediting democracy. Paying for social media that discredits the democracy. Taking Americans and dividing them so much. Republicans, Democrats, supporters of this candidate, supporters of that candidate. Splitting us up to the point where it looks like the democracy can't get the job done. Discrediting that. Now it backfired in this last election. Because democracy, I truly believe, is a strength. But he has literally spent millions and millions of dollars, has a whole agency doing nothing but to try to destroy democracies around the world because he doesn't believe in that. And we do. And he's using that strength against us. And we're buying it. We are chomping at the bit to be at odds with each other. To be divided. Oh, here's one. He is funding and helping second right amendments groups in the United States. Why? because that's a certain voter group. And then there's another voter group that's very much against guns, right? You're seeing that legislation go through Congress right now, right? So you got both sides of that. He's playing both sides. But do you think they allow the Second Amendment in Russia? He wants to encourage it here because it's divisive. He'd never tolerate in his own country. Judo master. And this is a guy that only runs the 14th largest economy in the world. Come on, it's nothing. And yet he's a nemesis because he doesn't think the United States deserves to be where it is. Putin wrote an op-ed. I posted it up on the board there several years ago, but for everyone in the Wall Street Journal about how America does not deserve what it has. Because here's his viewpoint. World War II, 90% of the Nazi German units were destroyed by the Soviet Union. And we come in at the end of the war and just clean up our half of the war. Russia still says we were a year late in our invasion to take pressure off of them. That they won World War II fairly single-handedly against the Nazis, and we come in late to the plate. We lost 450,000 Americans. They lost 20 million. The United States does not deserve what it has. And he's committed to see us fall to second, third, fourth, and fifth place. And why are we falling for this game? Because we can't get unified. Remember the title here, this thing here. You have to have national unity to make any of this happen. So what's the remedy now? You tell me.
A war.
Okay, let's play that one out.
We need a World War III, and then not nuclear, so that way we get our nation together.
Yeah.
Everyone goes off to wherever it has someone they care about anymore. All of a sudden you're friends.
It's an intriguing thought. What's the odds?
None.
None. Yeah, the next war can't happen that way. All wars will be regional because they're economically oriented.
Yeah.
Only reason we fight in the Middle East is for the oil. Why else would we go there? Why are we in Afghanistan? Do you know how much it costs us to be in Afghanistan? What are we getting from it?
Couldn't tell you.
No, we're the fix. So what is the fix for the country?
We just leave.
How can we get back to at least the top tier here and hopefully stay there through your lifetime? Sound like a good essay? If you didn't have a research paper, I'd assign it today. Right? Would you say, I got a research paper, so I'm protected, right? You can't touch me until I get my paper done, right? So that's true. But think about these elements of power. This is where we made some mistakes. We had an 11-nation agreement 4 years ago of Asian nations in a Pacific partnership to offset the growing economic power of China. Indonesia was in it, Chile was in it, Japan was in it, Australia was in it, all these Pacific Rim countries. And we walked away from it. You got to play smart because guess what? Your enemies are. Right? Who's the biggest threat to the United States? What country?
China.
Economically speaking, probably China. Russia?
Russia is.
Yeah, Russia
pretty
probably a
close,
big
though.
problem.
And Russia's got its own problems, right?
Yeah.
Here's a country too where it's Putin's major opposition person, he tried to poison him twice, put him in jail. But they got that huge nuclear arsenal. And they want to cause trouble because they want to still be a player like they were in the Soviet Union. Putin said the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century was the decline of the Soviet Union. He'd like to rebuild that. That's why he invaded Ukraine. That's why he took over half of another country right next to his shores. And he got away with it. Yeah.
I think the country that would be the greatest threat to America is ourselves. Because as you said, diplomacy is kind of being used against us, and we're so much divided at this point that nothing's going to take us down like the other side.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. And then let's look at Germany. Does Germany want us to still be the leaders of the free world? Does the German chancellor want to say, yeah, Mr. Biden, here you go, take that mantle back that Reagan had, that Obama had, that you can go ahead and lead us now?
Probably not.
Uh-uh. No, they don't want to give up. Why? Because they've been burned. They've been burned. And so they can't put the trust in us that they had before. Plus, we don't have the economic power to bribe them. All right, let's get to this core section now. So fun discussion, right? Think about it. Because you guys have to solve that problem, not me. I'm going to retire and go back to St. George and, enjoy retirement. You guys got to figure it out. And I think the number one key is education. Our population simply, can I tell you this is such an observation, but anyway, here we go. When you guys get into this school, and over the next 3 years, by the time you get your associate's degree, your whole understanding of complexity changes. You understand statistics, you understand analysis, you understand all these kinds of things. If students don't go to college, do they have the same ability to deconstruct ideas? Like you did so brilliantly, you just threw it right back at me. Now, I was expecting to lead you to that answer. You nailed it before I even brought it up, right? But how many of your peers who are struggling to get their high school degree could do that? Can they write on your level? Can they research on your level? Should they be given the opportunity to do that? Which means we should pay for college education for every student with Christian years. Because not to do so puts us at a disadvantage economically. Every student should get their bachelor's degree for free. It should be the new high school diploma. Or guess what? They're graduating 20 million a year. We're graduating 6 million a year. Who wins? So that's something to think about. You guys, work on that. Work on that. This is the whole geopolitical part of political science, which I find fascinating, by the way. To me, I just love this whole section. So let's get in and go back to those guys that defined it for us. Okay, so now you guys taking notes, you don't need to, you can hear the lecture over again, but you'll remember most of this, right? But let's go through it. Okay, you guys remember from your ancient history class, right? Greek thought in the classical age. They go through 3 periodizations here in the classical world. The Hellenic age, which is the age of Greece itself with Sparta, Athens, and the war with Persia and so on. Hellenistic age, who started that? Who was the conqueror that started that? Come on, you know this. Hellenistic age, where they spread Greek ideas throughout the Middle East and throughout the Mediterranean because of a conquest of one guy. Alexander the Great, that's right, Alexander the Great. And so the Greeks took over Egypt, the Greeks took over the Middle East, the Greeks took over, so much, and they would have been Rome, but they couldn't stay united. Big lesson there. So the Roman period then comes in, and the Romans are able to upend the Hellenistic kingdoms. Now, following this, I'm giving this as kind of a quick rundown because we've got to get to here in the next unit, okay? So this is kind of where we're at right now, is the Hellenic age and the Hellenistic age. Aristotle was from this stage here. Then the Roman period, which is so fundamental to our democracy. The founding fathers loved Rome. They loved the Republic of Rome. That's who they worshiped and idolized. They did not like the democracy of Athens, but they liked this. And so this is so many of the things that we call strictly American, like the Senate, the veto power, all that came from this Roman period. Now, Rome falls apart, as you guys remember. And this gives us into a medieval period in Christian Europe. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the Arab Muslim empires, they're going through a brilliant stage in the 700s, 800s, 900s, and so on. These two worlds collided in the Crusades and wars. So Muslims fighting Christians, big problems. But what came out of this was a cross-fertilization of cultures. the knowledge of the Arabs and the brilliance of their society that had adopted the Greek ideas and put them into their lifestyle. Well, the Christians didn't do that. They rejected anything Greek because it was pagan. So this was an important time of rebirth for Western Europe. And that's called the Renaissance. So they rediscover this period of history that was non-Christian, but build it into their Christian Western European world. And then this kicks off, and by the way, this was a time when a lot of money was made, especially in Northern Italy. And this then leads to the Age of Enlightenment, which takes place in the 17th and 18th century. This intellectual and cultural movement is really what the Constitution of the United States is built upon. So here's your foundation stones. Here's a link. It's just one link, one link, one link, one link, one link, one link until you get to here. And that's who we are. We are basically a reflection of the Age of Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th century, which was inspired by this. So we got to go back to this inspiration, do a little bit more thought. Who said, and you got it all right, pretty much everybody on the rest study. Oh no, that was the world history. The unexamined life is not worth living. And then they force us to get to common definitions. For example, here's one of the other problems we have. We've had it this year. What's communism?
Everyone is equal, money's all divided equally, everyone gets like the basic needs met.
Okay, and that's a pretty, accurate description. Who came up with that theory?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Karl Marx, 1800s. He was in to go back to the slide. He was just an economic theorist. That's all he was. He was an economic theorist who's looking at capitalism saying, wait a minute, can't capitalism be fixed? And everything else came up with this theory. Yeah, but did it end up working? No. Okay, so is communism and socialism the same thing? Well, explain the differences then.
I feel like socialism allows for more economic diversity, whereas communism is everyone gets all the same amount of money and like all their needs met.
Yeah.
But socialism, like the basics are provided by the government, but everything else you like can go out on your own and like buy from a shop.
Okay, so great analysis. So how does a capitalist society, let's talk capitalism first, what's that? Yeah.
Means of production are controlled by individuals for profit.
And the definition you just gave was Marx's definition. Karl Marx gives us that definition. Isn't that interesting?
Didn't know that.
See, because he was a kind of an economic historian who was describing. Yeah? And so we use those same descriptions. Okay, so so how many capitalists are there in America?
America's a weird mix.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, we say we're capitalists, but we also definitely have some socialist aspects.
What does it take, you're on the right track, what does it take to be a capitalist?
Like 100%, the government doesn't help anyone with anything. Everyone just works and earns their own money and takes care of themselves. Nothing comes from the government.
So it's basically economic anarchy.
Essentially. But there's some, I don't know, I feel like there should be some structure, but like the government isn't involved. It's just ran by people.
If you, what you just said, why does it need a structure?
I feel like, I don't know, it's such a large scale that like in a nation, if you have no structure, then it's anarchy, and anarchy doesn't work. Like when you're, I don't know.
Okay, let me give you a good example of where you're going. Is the illegal drug industry capitalist?
Yes.
Yes, on steroids.
Yeah.
They are the ultimate manifestation of capitalism. Free enterprise, do whatever you want, no rules.
Mhm.
Just take lots of drugs and make a lot of profit in the United States by snorkeling into the
Make drugs, make money.
billion dollar industries, right? So you say some structure. Who provides the structure?
The dealers.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as the country's concerned, who provides the structure?
In countries, it is the government.
Article 1, Section 8. Article 1, Section 8 gives us a structure. right? For example, who creates our money?
The government, they print it.
Yeah, the Congress authorizes the national bank to make money system, right? To generate an economy. Is that socialist or capitalist?
That's socialist.
That's socialist. I mean, come on, right? Government controls the money system. Capitalists use that money to create industries and business. It's a very, very nice thing to do. Let me ask you this question. Are you a capitalist?
I'm not. Personally, no.
Why are you not?
Because at least, like, if nothing else, COVID has shown me that, like, we definitely do need the government support, like, with all the, like, stimulus checks and unemployment benefits, all that sort of stuff. Like, I know personally, my family got, like, hit hard with COVID. Both my parents, like, lost their jobs, and so we definitely relied on that a lot to try to get through that.
Yeah.
And it helped out, and, like, I can see how it would help out a lot of other places. And, like, so many people are below the poverty line.
Mhm.
We need the government to step in and help out.
If it was only Pfizer and those businesses, or international businesses, by the way, providing the vaccine without any government purchasing, buying bulk, how many people would be vaccinated by now?
Like,
Just those that could pay
Just
$500,
like the top
$600,
ones.
right? Top tier, richest people. So I think you're seeing that, but let's take a look at this. To be a capitalist, you need at least $200 million to invest. The capitalists are the people with the money to invest. There are probably only 2,000 Americans that have enough money to make a big difference where you can start a business like an Elon Musk or whatever. The rest of us live in a capitalist society. So the people at the top of a capitalist society, what do we call them? Plutocrats.
Yeah.
How many of you are going to run and own your own business? Which is, by the way, a very cool and noble thing to do. I've done it. One semi-successful business, running on the ground floor of others, which was kind of fun. But guess what? There's only a few capitalists who control that amount of money. If you don't have $100, $200, $300 million to invest, you're not an investor. And if you're a small, just raise a little 401k, maybe, support your family down the road. All good things. But here's the thing, we live in a capitalist society. We're not all capitalists. Because to be a capitalist, you have to have capital to invest. And do you?
Yeah.
Not the kind of capital that's going to make a difference. Definitions matter. People who don't go to college don't get these definitions down. They don't see that. They don't examine this. Autocracy, one person says unlimited power, usually a monarch or who rules with unlimited authority, comes from a Greek word. It has a hereditary component. This is kind of important for your study guide. Hereditary component. Despotism. This is a good one. This is new. Governments by a single authority, individual or despot, or tightly knit group which rules with absolute political power. Enlightened despotism means the despots are doing a great job. Here's another thing. Oh, despotism's got to be all bad. Despotism can be good if the despots are good. But it can be terrible if the despots are bad. Think about this. Are all democracies good? They can be both good or bad. And let's go to this dictatorship. Autocratic form of government, which the government is ruled by an individual, the dictator, without hereditary ascension. So the difference here between an autocracy and dictatorship is the hereditary part. So we'd have to kind of rethink, Putin's autocratic, but I doubt it's going to be a hereditary thing. Well, it might be. I mean, he has the power to do it. Oligarchy, one more review, meaning a few, meaning rule or to command. Rule or effective control of society by a few elite people. That can be a military elite, a wealthy elite like plutocrats, a religious elite like in Iran, right? A group of religious leaders that run the place, or families. We had this in Tunisia, where families and family ties ruled. Plutocracy from the Greek, there it is, prokratatia, I don't say that, from ancient Greek, plutos, meaning wealth, and kratos, meaning to rule. Rule by the wealthy or power provided by wealth. So what's the United States? What's our form of government? Are we democracy or plutocracy? Or a little bit of both?
I think we're a little bit of both, but closer to democracy because we have the checks and balance systems. Like we have typically one wealthy leader in charge, but then we also have everyone else below that who
Yeah.
are more on the wealthy side, but you can't guarantee that for any political.
I think the last election put us safely back into the democracy side.
It was good a
The
little
biggest turnout since 1900, right? So that was good. Okay, so now we could spend some time, and we won't this semester because we just don't have time for it. But let's get some other terms now that Americans just don't know. Let's take a look. What's truth?
Truth is,
Not false.
yeah, it's not happening, like it's, well.
Yeah, it's easy to default to the opposite, right? What's truth? And is truth always the same for everybody?
I feel like a lot of it relies heavily on like moral standards. And so it's like
Right.
very different for everybody. What one
Yes.
person defines as true. may
I
not be
love
true.
that distinction. So there could be like objective truth in science, right? But then you have moral truth as defined by religious groups and philosophers and so on. So that makes truth difficult. When somebody says, this is true, this is true. Whoa, in a political sense, in a religious sense, it's gonna have a different context, right? But in a political sense, what is truth in a political sense,
Whatever you believe, I guess.
right? So we have that justice. Is this a just country?
We try to be, but.
We try to be, but we fall way short, right?
Yeah.
George Floyd ring a bell?
Yeah.
To the city of Milwaukee, right? They lost a wrongful death suit. $27 million paid to the family of George Floyd. And this is before the criminal trial began. I don't know that we've got that justice part down. And let's see how it works against us. You ready? Let's go ahead. I'm going to hit escape here really fast. And we're going to look at China here for a second. All right, let me get to, hang on, the right one. Where's that clip? Ah, my speaker notes, where'd they go? My apologies. Oh, here we go. There was a meeting between China and the United States in Anchorage, Alaska this week. It did not go well. We accused them of civil rights violations, human rights violations. They accused us of the same.
Understandable.
Americans think we have a moral authority in the world, but the world's not buying it. Here we go. Heated exchanges.
Bill Clinton, the Secretary of State.
Deep concerns with actions by China. That's our Secretary of State telling them we're concerned about what you're doing. Cyber attacks on us, on other countries. Economic coercion of people around the world. If you have the #1 economy in the world, can you use that to your advantage? Who did it in the ancient past? Athens and the Delian League. Same thing. Uh-oh, they're criticizing us? He criticized U.S. democracy and domestic racial tensions. Like they don't have that in China. Anyway.
So I think this rhetoric was probably not unexpected. And of course, as you say, what happens behind closed doors is really going to be what's most important. But I think that the opening day was a spectacle. And hopefully the second day that they will get down to brass tacks and work on these critical issues that really need to be resolved. And, is China going to be part of the rules-based order, the international order, and have the respect for human rights and that all countries should have?
Oh, wait a minute. So what's true here? Which country violates human rights the most, China or the United States?
Good question.
What's the truth? See where I was leading to? With justice and truth? We're coming down on them in a condescending manner, saying you should be more like us, and they're saying, why would we do that?
You have you seen yourself?
Yeah. See the problem we're in? Diplomatically. So this is our diplomatic effort. Where's it gonna go? It's a toughie, right? So it goes on and back and forth like this. We won't play the full exchange, but there was just, well, let's play more of it so you can see the Chinese perspective here. Still going on. Okay, so what are tariffs and sanctions?
A sanction is where you don't do trade with them.
Right. Okay, so the United States decides to block certain products coming from China. We'll show you, we won't buy your stuff. How's that going to work?
It's gonna hurt our economy.
They countered by not buying a bunch of American agricultural products and whatever, and it really hurt the economy in the agricultural area. Both countries' economies dipped. But who's more than theirs? Ours. Look around, what do we get from China?
Everything.
What did they get from us?
Not much.
So the strategy backfired. It just didn't work. And so let's keep going. Ooh, so he put sanctions on 28 specific Chinese business leaders and military people too. Whoa, holy moly. Biden's playing hardball. Can he get away with it?
We'll see.
We'll see. Here's from his news conference that I told you we were going to play. Here's a question he got at his news conference about China. Here's the China segment. Here we go.
I wanted to ask about your relationship with China now that you've been in office for a couple of months. There's obviously the meeting in Alaska that was a little theatrical, and there's the continued human rights abuses. So today, I'm wondering, are you more likely than you were when you came into office to maintain tariffs on China? Are you considering banning imports of forced labor products? And would you consider cutting off U.S. investment or Chinese access to international payment systems?
Well, look, they're each specifically legitimate questions, but they only touch a smidgen of what the relationship with China really is about. I've known Xi Jinping for a long time. Allegedly, by the time I left office as vice president, I'd spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader had. Because President Obama and the Chinese President Hu decided we should get to know one another, since it was inappropriate for the President of the United States to spend time with the Vice President of another country. But it was obvious he was going to become the new leader of China. So I spent hours upon hours with him alone with an interpreter, my interpreter and his, going into great detail. He's very, very straightforward. Doesn't have a democratic with a small d bone in his body, but he's a smart guy. He's one of the guys like Putin who thinks that autocracy is the way to the future. Democracy can't function in an ever complex world. So when I was elected, he called to congratulate me. I think to the surprise of the China experts who were his people on the call as well as mine listening. We had a 2-hour conversation for 2 hours. And we made several things clear to one another. I made it clear to him again, what I told him in person on several occasions, that we're not looking for confrontation, although we know there will be steep competition. Two, that will have strong competition, but will insist that China play by the international rules. Fair competition, fair practices, fair trade. Thirdly, in order to compete effectively, I indicated that we're going to deal with China effectively. And we're going to need three things to do that. Telling our people. First, we're going to invest in American workers and American science. I said that all through the campaign. I say it again, and I'm setting up my administration to be able to do that, which is that, you know, back in the 60s, we used to invest a little over 2% of our entire GDP in pure research and investment in science. Today, it's 0.7%. I'm going to change that. We're going to change that. The future lies in who can, in fact, own the future as it relates to technology, quantum computing, a whole range of things, including the medical fields. And so what I'm going to do is make sure we invest closer to 2%. One of the reasons why I've set up the PIAB, the President's Board of Scientists and the like, again, is we're going to invest in medical research.
Did you guys get some answers out of this part right here, the 0.7%, 2%, that you could use on your research paper on the economy? Can autocracy win or will democracy win? Persia was an autocracy. Sparta was an autocracy. Democracy failed. Are we going to fail? What have we got to do? Okay, so there's some answers for you. There's some data right there you can throw into your paper. Okay? Does that help with the economy side? All right, it's been fun. See you guys later, like in 2 days. Okay, paper's due on the 1st. You guys are the only ones that know.
Thank you so much.
See you guys. Good job today. And your writing's brilliant.
Is it due like at 11:59 that night or right at 12? 11:59.
Yeah. Don't cut it that close, man.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let's put up the little seating chart for y'all.
It does.
Cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the things.